So I think I got big timed this week because JB normally loves Hobart Union weekend. You know, it's the Friday before, rubs in Hobart's going to beat Union, Frank, and he's not there. Nate Milton popped in instead. I'm not sure what this is. Coach, how are you?
Doing great. Is JB on his way to the game? Is he going to make a venture to see a game up north here? Is that what's going on? Is his flights are switched or what?
Well, no, it was a little family issue this morning, to be honest with you. So he'll deal with that as he always does. But it would have been good for him to come up. We would have had a great time, I think, doing it just like we did a couple of years ago. He came up for the Union Hobart game, and I got to see the overtime win by the Union Dutchman at the time. I don't get in trouble if I say at the time.
At the time, that's right.
Yes. How do you like the whole Garnet Chargers thing?
The team makes the name, not the name makes the team. You could be the Fighting Alphabet Soups, and if you show up looking like North Central, it's not going to matter. You're the Fighting Alphabet Soups, and nobody's going to care what your mascot is. Alumni may care, but the players make the jersey, and as we tell our guys, I tell my son. My son's wearing number 57, and he's going through and trying to find great players that wore 57, and I go, the player makes the number, not the number makes the player.
I agree with you. That said, I did enjoy the fact when I covered a Union game this season, one of the players who will remain unnamed because we don't want to get them in trouble, comes up to me, knows my passion about the nickname, and says, "That was a big-time Dutchman win, wasn't it, Frank?" Knowing what he was saying, and I was like, no, it's the Garnet Chargers. So, it is what it is at this point. Union's having a great season. Hobart's having a great season. Only one of three teams technically can finish 9-1 for a Pool C possibility right now between those three after Ithaca went through their gauntlet already. Much like what's happening in the pack with after Grove City did their, dirty on everybody. Three teams are kind of fighting it out to try to go to 9-1, although they could all do themselves in and go to 8-2 and then probably not be in a Pool C position. So it's interesting. You've got a huge game. Muhlenberg at Dickinson. The Red Devils are legit. So after I start up the show here, we'll talk briefly about that and many other games because everybody, you are watching Season 16 of In the Huddle. Okay, Coach, I'm curious to get your take on some games here. I'll call them out for you because I know it's going to look a little small on your end where you are, and JB had put these together for us. But there is one Friday night game nationally in the entire D3 nation. That is Mass Maritime at Western Connecticut. WestCon still looking to win the MASCAC, still in a position to possibly do so. Bridgewater State's got a trip, though, for that to happen. But this game should be pretty easy for WestCon. If it's a close game, that would be a little surprising to us. The game I'm going to attend, though, Salve Regina versus Springfield. Salve comes into the NUMAC and says, hey, we want the hardware here. And I kind of sound like Kevin Gilmartin today with a little bit of rasp in my voice. So, it is what it is. But, you see that. You also see Lebval versus Del Val, and that's a huge game. Louis Barrios joining us in a second, and we'll talk with him together if you don't mind. But you look at these games, what jumps out at you?
Yeah, anytime you got to go on the road on a Friday night, we saw that against Ursinus a couple weeks ago. I think that always favors the home team when you're at home and teams are a little bit out of sorts up there. You never know what traffic's going to be on a Friday night. They got to go on the turnpike up there, and that can be a disaster at any point in time, let alone on the weekend. So I think, WestCon, again, at home on a Friday night is always a good thought on there. Salve and Springfield, again, a big one there. I know Salve has seen the triple option already this year, so they're not going to be caught off guard, or it's not like they have to reinstall the wheel up there. So, again, two good teams. I think Springfield's triple is a little bit unique in what they do and how they run it, and the pride that they take in that. And then Lev Val Del Val, again, huge game. I think Del Val has really come on strong this season and played, again, a really tough non-conference game against Cortland to really battle them, test themselves, not only for the MAC, but also then to prepare themselves for the postseason. So I think Del Val is getting hot at the right time, which every team kind of wants to do. You want to make sure, number one, that you're healthy, and then you want to make sure that you're playing really good football at the end of the season.
So how are you with interviews? I mean, are you down for this real co-host tryout situation we've got going on here, unanticipated today?
Yeah, we'll be okay, I think.
Okay, head coach Nate Muhlen from Muhlenberg now donning his in the huddle credentials here, folks, and we're going to start up here and bring in Louis Barrios IV, the junior quarterback from Delaware Valley, and he's had one of those careers so far. The up, the down, and all around, but he's still somebody that is very much feared in the MAC. And Louis, thrilled to have you here. Thanks for joining us. How are you this morning?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. How you doing, Coach? What's up, Frank?
Good to see you, man.
You too.
Yeah, the little bit of Pennsylvania cooking going on around here. Obviously not too far from each other. You got to go through some back roads and whatnot to get to each other's schools from each other. But Louis, let me ask you. A lot of people had written off Del Val earlier in the season. They said, yeah, despite the fact, they've got a good, core of games after the Cortland situation, and that was a tough game, obviously, for you guys. Yeah, they're just not the same team, and yet you guys just keep winning and winning and winning here. What's the drive right now? What's motivating you and this team to continue the winning ways to make sure that you don't slip up here, especially in these MAC games like this one versus Lev Val?
I mean, we take week by week individually every week. We know we stand on a lot of heavy tradition here at Del Val, and week one was, we got smacked in the mouth, and kind of was a blessing in disguise because it gets easy when you keep winning and winning. Everybody expects kind of that just to happen. So our team's pretty young right now, and it was good to get that taste in our mouth. It's wow, it's not just going to come easy like that. We got to keep putting in this work and not take everything for granted. So right now, each week we feel like our back's against the wall, and we just have to come out winning. And no matter how we do it, if it's running the ball, throwing the ball, defensively, special teams, all got to come together, and we keep the main thing, and that's just to win games.
That's absolutely right. And Frank, as you guys know, I think we experienced the same thing that Louis is talking about in 2021. We were coming off of a Final Four appearance, and obviously the COVID season was canceled. We were in the top 10 in the country and went on the road, and or at home here, we lost to Ursinus. And to Louis' point, that kind of got everybody refocused. So sometimes, as he mentioned, that term blessing in disguise is true. And it's about how the players look at it. It's about how the coaches look at it. And obviously a program like Delaware Valley, with the tradition that they have, it was easy for them to kind of gather themselves and know that they're going through the MAC gauntlet starting next week. And in every single game, when you play those 9 straight, it's a championship game in their mind. Louis, focusing a little bit on football here. What is one thing that you think you guys have improved on, specifically on the offensive side of the ball? And then where's an area that you guys are looking to continue to improve?
An area that we're looking to improve in, I can start first, is just continuing to focus on the little things. I feel like we came out there and we're trying to find identity. We had some new faces on there. Some younger guys, so we're just really trying to focus on doing your job. Everybody focusing on their job and not worrying about everything else, and then take it by play. And then the first question was what do we do well?
Yeah, what have you guys seen? Like, what is your identity a little bit this year? As you mentioned, you have some new players, and maybe something you were doing early on in the season, and then now you've transitioned maybe to something else?
I mean, obviously, I feel like we're able to run the ball right now pretty well. We got a lot of good running backs back there, and the O-line starting to get in their groove. So we like to line up and let our running backs do some dirty work.
It's always been a staple at Delaware Valley is being able to run the ball. They do have a bunch of tough individuals on the offensive line, and I think that is a really good point. When you're breaking in new teams, and I know there are a lot of coaches that have different philosophies on this, but I think many of the best programs, they're going to tailor their offense and their defense towards their players instead of just running. This is play one, and we're going to run play one no matter who our quarterback is. Well, if you can't throw it like Louis does, then maybe you shouldn't be running play one. And so you've got to tailor that. And sometimes, to his point, that takes a little bit of time throughout the season to really find your niche and your identity.
Well, Louis, I want to kind of buttress off that point that he's making there. It's one of those things for you last season. I think the difference maker for Del Val was the fact that you kind of came out of nowhere and had this arm that was throwing some great touchdowns, some great passes throughout the season. You struggle at times this season, as if they've kind of caught on to who you are. You're not fooling anybody anymore. So how have you had to adjust personally to make sure that the pass game is still an option? Because you're not going to have a successful run game without a successful pass game opening it up ultimately. So tell us about your season progression personally here.
So, obviously, as a quarterback, you want to be able to throw the ball. But these past, 3-4 weeks, the weather itself, it seems like it's sunny all week until it gets to Saturday, and then it just wants to downpour. So that's been a little struggle with dealing with the weather. But, we just let the game come to us, whatever it takes. If we got to throw the ball 40 times, if we got to run the ball 40 times, or split it and go even, we're just worried about winning right now. So honestly, I don't care if I'm throwing for 100 yards, rushing for 100 yards, rushing for 5 yards, throwing for 5 yards. As long as we win the game at the end of the day, then that's all that matters.
They're scrappy, I'll tell you, Coach, in terms of winning those games. And that's a Duke Greco mentality. He doesn't care how he wins necessarily either, as long as that scoreboard's showing the right numbers. And he'll get mad at the team if it's close, sure, but that scrappy nature of Del Val teams over the years has been a successful equation in the MAC for sure. And then they have a game like this one coming up versus Lev Val. What do you think of this team? And then, Coach, I'll let you go after this. But what do you think of this Lev Val team? They're tough to identify, I think, personally. They've kind of had a consistency of sorts this season, but this is a real test for them compared to the rest of the schedule that they've played so far. Give me your take on what you're going to see, especially on the defense of Lev Val, that you're kind of anticipating coming up on Saturday.
Lev Val's a good team. I think they might even lead the nation in takeaways or defensive touchdowns. They have a really good defense. They're coached really well. Their offense does great things. This is our second home game of the season, and it's homecoming, so it's just going to be a really exciting time. It's like games like this is what makes you want to play football and enjoy everything. It's going to be two big teams in the conference going at it, and I think it'll just be fun on Saturday.
Yeah, we had the opportunity to play Lebanon Valley last year in the Centennial MAC Bowl Series, and they do have a unique identity in what they do. And if they can play their style of football, to your point, Frank, I think most people know sometimes football games are about matchups and who can do what. Lebanon Valley is one of those teams. If they stay in rhythm and they stay on schedule and they can put you in situations. I remember last year they had a unique nickel package on third down. They played, I can't even describe it. It was just a wild formation, almost like an amoeba defense, and they're bringing guys from all over the place. And so our goal on offense was to make sure that we stayed out of 3rd and 5 plus. And we had to stay on schedule with those types of things. So I think they are a unique opponent in kind of what they're doing. on that side of the ball. And I think obviously Del Val has a significant identity as well. So again, it can be a unique matchup for both teams out there, and a challenge on both defenses for sure.
Well, one thing I've never heard JB say in the show is amoeba defense. So, I mean, we already have some history being made here in the Huddle with Nate Milne as my guest co-host here today. We may drop the guest part at some point in the show and just go with him. But no, Louis, listen, why Del Val, and what's your relationship with Coach Greco? Why do you love that guy so much? He's really beloved around the Del Val family for years and years here, and he just seems to have that consistency. But tell us why you picked Del Val in the first place and why you kind of trusted in Coach Greco.
Yeah, so why I chose Del Val is so I transferred in from Pace University, and when I came on a visit here, my high school came really valued tradition and family, and as soon as I stepped foot on campus here, you just felt that. Like, you walk in the locker room, you see the coaches who run this program, and even the people, they embrace football here. They embrace the culture and everything. They don't BS you. This is a school where if you wanna play football and go to school, this is where you want to go. We might not be flashy with everything else outside of football, but if you love football and you want to be here, this is the school for you. And that's exactly what I was looking for. Then Coach Greco, you want a straightforward guy as a head coach. You want somebody that talks to you about other things than football, that cares about you more than just having the ball in your hand. And that's exactly who he is as a guy. He's someone you could go to about anything, someone that has your back no matter what. And I love Coach Greco, man. He's a good guy.
Well, tremendous. Yeah, you can see it there in Louis' face. When you have that relationship with a head coach, it can be really, really special.
Indeed. This is a game, if Gordon Mann wasn't calling the game, this would have been one of the games I probably would have gone to this weekend. Gordon Mann works with this at D3Football.com, so it's tough for me to, step in his turf until the playoffs. Then it's no more turf war, and I like that. But I'm going to be watching the scoreboard for sure this weekend. I'm curious to see if Del Val can continue here, because you do still have that target on your back. There's no doubt. Until you slip up here, that target's remaining front and center, and you know that as much as anybody, Louis. I want to give you a chance for shout-outs to any family, friends, teammates, whomever you'd like. Louis Barrios, the floor is yours.
I just appreciate this opportunity for inviting me to the show. Of course, I want to say hi, Mom. She's tuned in right now watching, and, just this weekend is going to be a good game, so if you guys can come out to Del Val, appreciate it, and go Aggies.
Big time homecoming game coming up there. One thing, Louis, that we don't normally ask, we're going to send you a customer satisfaction survey to see what your thoughts of this guy were as your interviewer. So, make sure, scale of 1 to 10, we'll have the questions. Anything above a 6 is probably better than JB, is what I understand. He's not going to defend himself, so I can do this. So just make sure, you give him credit where you need to give him credit, and ding him where you got to ding him, okay?
Smart man thanking his mom. All right, he knows Thanksgiving is right around the corner, and if he wants what's going to be on the table, he's got to thank Mom on there. So Louis, smart guy right there. That's why you're playing quarterback, man.
Appreciate it, Coach.
Louis, good luck to you and the Aggies. Good luck to everybody on Saturday. Let's see a great game. I'm hoping the weather holds out to a certain degree for you, because I know we're still getting ambushed by rain on another weekend here in certain areas in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. So good luck regardless of the elements, and we'll see how it goes for everybody.
Thank you.
Louis Barrios, the fourth, joining us from Del Val. Good guy. Like I said, his season numbers have been all over the place, and I think you experienced this with Nikowski back when, that once the curtain was up and people had a year of dealing with the quarterback, that quarterback has to begin to adjust in a certain way, because their characteristics are known. Now they've got to start adding a little something to their game, or start looking differently, or reading the defenses a little bit differently, because the defenses are now shading because of this guy somehow, and getting successful at it. Tell us that phenomenon a little bit, or about that phenomenon from your experience.
Yeah, it's twofold. Number one, as a play caller on offense, you've got to continue to push the quarterback. They ultimately want more on their plate. And so you can't just run the same plays over and over and over again. The best players need to be challenged, not only on the field, but off the field as well. And so Mike craved a leadership role like any quarterback does. And it seems like Louis has that right there, just that personality. I know Del Valle has a tradition and maybe a couple of fifth years and things like that. But when you're the quarterback, you need to have that control over a football team. And then to your point, besides new installs and changing and tailoring the offense to their needs, you've got to see them mature. We've said it to Joe Rapetti this year, and I said it to Mike many, many years ago. This is your show now. If you don't like something, if I call a bad play clock is running out, don't look to me. You've got to call a timeout. You've got to adjust the play. And so I think adding those types of things, so when they see the game the way that they do with the line of scrimmage, that they're able to take what the defense has given them. We think there's a good run play and a good pass play almost all the time on the offensive side of the ball. And sometimes we can get into it as play callers, and sometimes the quarterback has to get you into those good plays out there. You see the hitch. I think that's why so many people love the RPO is because it gives the quarterback the opportunity to give the ball, throw the ball, take what the defense has given them, and kind of move the chains. Frank, I can't hear you.
Yeah, that's because that mute thing is happening again. You know, I'm trying to make sure I'm not interrupting your sage wisdom of all sorts down there. And, of course, I mute myself out. We're going to Region 2, I was saying, because you're on this board and want to talk to you a little bit about your game. Not too much. Obviously, we're not going to give away the company secrets, as they always say here. But first off, let's look at what's at the top of this board. Ithaca Rochester has a whole new meaning, as we have confirmed that A.J. Wingfield is done for the season with a leg injury from the game that they won versus Union, but may have lost the real crux of their offense in the process. And it plays out interestingly because Rochester's had some moments this season where they've looked pretty good. And if they can put together a full game here, they might be able to challenge Ithaca at home. Rochester is in this game. That won't automatically, let's say, kill things off here for Ithaca. They more or less have to lose twice if Rochester slips up again, ultimately down the season. And we'll see where this goes. It's going to be an interesting scenario. We, again, send our best to A.J. Wingfield. It's a horrible ending for somebody who came back for the season, hoping to go even further in the playoffs. It is, something that is part of football, as you know, seeing those injuries mount.
For sure. AJ's a really good young man. I had the opportunity to recruit AJ out of high school at Ramapo High School in New Jersey. Got to know him. We've had a number of Ramapo players in years past at Muhlenberg College, and they're a terrific football program there in New Jersey. And so to your point, I want to wish AJ nothing but the best. He's a solid young man, really good football player, and certainly not the ending that he was looking for.
No. And then we look at Hobart Union, a game which obviously you and I take a little seriously here, you being the Hobart guy, me being the Union guy. JB is watching somewhere out there saying, hey, that's my line. But, it's again, the fight for 9-1 ultimately between the teams named Hobart Union and RPI, the old three-headed monster. And Ithaca kind of pushes the three-headed monster down a peg this season by beating all of them. But at the same time, Nate, important game at Union. Union's defense is still Union's defense. They still had some big moments last weekend despite the loss. And so, you look at this Hobart team that seems to have some great components. Where I don't know everybody in that team like I have in previous years, we'll put it that way. But at the same time, Hobart, they know the moment, okay? Kevin DeWall knows the moment here in a game like this. It is a very important game.
Yeah, some of my favorite moments in college are Hobart Union, Hobart RPI. The conference battles, the players the players you played against in high school. And so I think the moment is not lost on anybody on either side of the ball. You want to be playing championship caliber games late into October, and this certainly has the feel for that. And I think it'll be one of those knock 'em out, drag 'em out football games, the way Hobart likes to run the football. And obviously Union's defense is something really, really special. I think they're both top 10 in the country in both of those stats. Hobart's top 10 in the country, I think, in rushing offense, and I know Union is top 10 in scoring defense. So it's classic offense versus defense on there. And again, maybe it'll be somebody on the other side of the ball where it is Hobart's defense that makes the play against Union's offense. So it'll be really, really key for both teams.
Then we look at these next two games, and your conference right now is about 5 deep in terms of teams that really are what I would call the quality teams ready to knock somebody off any day of the week right now. It's you, it's Johns Hopkins, it's Dickinson, it's Franklin and Marshall, it's your Sinus, okay? And we saw it last week. Franklin and Marshall had JHU on the ropes at certain points in that game. Hopkins comes back to win it. But, your Sinus, I saw the game you played against them. They are a very tough team, no doubt. Yeah, they're on the road in Baltimore, but at the same time, they're still going to bring it. They need this game to stay alive here ultimately for a number of different things. Dickinson, on your end of the ledger, that's a tough one. That is an immensely tough game for you. We've talked about it in the cold open a little bit, but let's get a little more specific before I kind of send you off, as Andrew Santillo will be joining me for the rest of the way, and appreciate you joining me today on little notice, but great stuff today with you. But kind of give us, as you're leaving us here, a dose of what Muhlenberg-Dickinson is going to be, especially for you on the road.
I think, again, in general, when you look at the scores week in and week out, to your point, you see the depth of the Centennial Conference. Almost every single one of these games. And you go back to a year ago now, so this is not a one-off phenomenon. Dickinson wins on the last play of the game against a very good Franklin and Marshall team. Hopkins has to come back against Franklin and Marshall. We have a one-score game against Ursinus. A year ago, it's a one-score game against Ursinus, and a one-score game against Hopkins, and a one-score game against Franklin and Marshall. And so the depth, the talent in the Centennial Conference is really, really, really something to behold and something special. I know there are a lot of really good conferences out there from top to bottom, but for the last couple of seasons, you can see the depth. And when you have, again, teams like Johns Hopkins and like Muhlenberg that make the Elite Eight and you make the Final Four, I think you have great coaches in this league that are really starting to push their programs and push their athletic departments. Coach Fordyce and his staff have done a great job building at Dickinson. Coach Gallagher has done a great job. And obviously Coach Blumenauer has come in on the heels of Coach Troxel and really kept that thing going at Franklin and Marshall. And so you see really quality football teams over and over again on there. There was some talk about the gauntlet of conferences. And just to give you guys a little bit of insight about our game, there are absolutely no secrets between Muhlenberg and Dickinson College. Coach Fordyce and I worked together for 7 years. Coach Knapp, their offensive coordinator, and I worked together for 7 years. My wife watched both of their children growing up, and so besides being in the meeting rooms with each other, besides hanging out together, and now we've competed against each other at Muhlenberg and Dickinson for the past 6 years or so. We've got a 13-year relationship. There's no hiding anything. They know everything about us, and we know everything about them. And so it makes for that unique gauntlet that is conference play. When you get 6-7 weeks of that, sometimes these teams, like the teams in the WEAC, they can't wait for the first round of the playoffs so they don't have to play somebody from Wisconsin. And so I think in the Centennial Conference, you end up seeing the same thing. Where, again, a team like Johns Hopkins and Muhlenberg, there are no secrets. You've got 8 games on each other, and it is going to be a ferocious battle. And the same thing with Ursinus, and the same thing with Dickinson, and the same thing with Franklin and Marshall. And again, when you get to the playoffs, you only get 3 games on an opponent. And so there's such limited information. You've kind of got to find what they're doing well. Whereas right now, they have every single game on us. They've seen every single play. They know who's hurt. They know who's not hurt. We're an hour and a half away from each other. They know our players. We know their players. And so it really is a unique battle when you get into these big-time conference games.
First off, you said WIAC. Are you sure it's not WIAC? I know you watch our Twitter feed.
I saw it, and so I'm going with. I feel like there was somebody from Wisconsin that said there was a TV station or something that goes by WIAC or something like that, and so they go by the WIAC or something like that. So I felt like WIAC was the way to go. Again, I don't know, but I felt like that was the way to go there.
Andrew Santillo is coming in to pinch hit the rest of the way here. But Andrew, you just talked to Coach DeWall. Did he mention Nate Milne at all in your conversation with him? Because, I mean, we were talking elite statesman right there. Kevin DeWall, he knows who Nate Milne is, I think. Maybe got his autograph when he was younger or something like that. Was there anything that we should know about from that discussion related to the Union Hobart game?
Well, I mean, I think, I know Coach Milne a little bit. I went to Ithaca, so I know him a little bit from. I think he was at Cortland after I was at Ithaca, but then he was at Hobart, and I covered Union and RPI, for the newspaper before I followed in your large footsteps with the Union broadcast. But Coach DeWall, basically just said, I mean, this, Hobart Union, forget the fact that Union's 6-1 and Hobart's 5-1. I mean, this is going to be a close game. I mean, one of the last things Coach DeWall said to me just before we hung up was, the alums know how important this game is, right? I mean, it's Union and Hobart. I mean, it's not that far away. These are big-time Liberty League rivals. I mean, Ithaca has been up there, but they've only been in the Liberty League for a handful of years. So, it's been Hobart, it's been RPI, it's been Union. St. Lawrence snuck in for a couple of years. So, I mean, these have been the top dogs here, for the last handful of seasons, and we expect another close one in a rivalry that dates back to the 1800s, right? 1890 something or other.
Yeah, and Coach Milne was a freshman for that game. It was a great game, leather helmets and everything else, right, Coach?
Yeah, Coach DeWall and I played together one season, and that was my freshman year, his senior year, and then he was on staff as well with us. So Coach DeWall and I have known each other for a number of years, and he knows this, and I always make sure to make note of it. Coach DeWall had a significantly higher GPA than I did when he graduated as part of the Druid Society there at Hobart College. So next time,
super elite.
Next meeting, that is beyond. That's like beyond my capacity. Like there's Hobart elite education, and then when you're in the Druid Society, I mean, it's very few humans on Earth can comprehend that. Maybe Elon Musk could take a deep dive into something like that, but even he would probably struggle to keep up with most of the individuals who've been through that.
Coach, best of luck against Dickinson. Thank you for joining us here. You did a great job as always, and we'll see if that game versus Johns Hopkins retains the elite status. We think it does. Coming up very, very soon. You may see me trolling the sidelines one more time. And you said I'm allowed to join you based on what happened in the Ursinus game a few Fridays ago. So I'm going to take you up on that if that game remains, let's say, the elite game on the schedule looks like it may be.
Yeah, win, lose, or draw, it's going to be a massive game for us finally to get back home. And again, to Louis' point, hopefully we can turn the weather around here at some point in the Mid-Atlantic. It's been beautiful all week and rain on the weekend. So I think when we start voting for all conference and all Americans and things like that, you're going to have to take a look and see the weather games. You got to see a one-off here. We've had back-to-back weekends where it's been really hard for quarterbacks to throw for more than 100 yards. So you're going to see some of those guys out west who've had bigger numbers than us, probably because it's been dry. But I think we've got some good players out here. So appreciate you guys having me. And we'll see what the rest of the season holds for us. Appreciate it. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Good luck, Coach.
Andrew, we're going to go to our Region 2 slide here and talk a little bit about it here. We kind of did the deep dive in the first 4 games. Salisbury-Rowan is kind of an important game for bowl type of scenarios. Both teams are out of really a legitimate Pool C running. Washington Jeff and Carnegie Mellon is a very much a Pool C type of game because both teams looking to finish 9-1 after both losing to Grove City already this season in the PAC. It's going to be tough for a PAC team to get a look at 9-1 because of the all-conference game scenario that they're playing all their games against each other. So everybody's going to have basically near a 500 strength of schedule, which means that there are going to be a lot of teams out there that may be in Pool C bid position where ultimately they're going to look better than a 9-1 PAC team. But first things first, these teams have to get to 9-1. We'll see what happens there. Give me a little bit more insight here, if you can, on this Hobart Union matchup from your perspective here.
Yeah, well, it's funny. You just mentioned Pool C. I just got off the phone with Coach DeWall as we were talking about it. He said he thinks that a Liberty, and I know the numbers maybe won't back necessarily his argument per se, but he was very adamant that a 9-1 potential 9-1 runner-up in the Liberty League, based on the way the conference has performed, based on the fact that you have 4 teams with 1 loss, with RPI, Union, Ithaca, and Hobart. He felt very strongly that a 9-1 Liberty League team should be considered for the Pool C, and he said, part of it was, listen, our conference has had a lot of balance. And we've been able to perform well in the postseason, and he thinks that's part of the reason why is because of the strong tests that they faced during the year. So it's interesting that we're talking about this. I mean, I think it's funny. I came into it thinking he might be focusing more on the offense, especially because he calls the offensive plays, and he did talk about the offense, but he basically said these are 2 teams in Hobart and Union that have great defenses. Unions is among, if you look at just statistics, among the tops in the country with only allowing 7 points per game. But Hobart is only allowing 13 points per game. So 2, very good defenses and some opportunistic offenses. So he thinks it's going to come right down to the wire. He'd like to get his run game established with Tim Denham and Rayshawn Boswell, who average, he has a team, they average over 200 yards a game. So I think it's going to come right down to the wire. And you've called your fair share of Hobart Union games. I mean, it always seems to come down to the wire between these 2 programs. I didn't know, in stepping in, and I apologize that I was late because I was on the phone with Coach DeWall, but the fact that JB was just turning his back on you here this week because of the big Hobart Union rivalry. He's on to greener pastures, I guess.
I've been big time by him. That's exactly what's happened here. Listen, we have a guest in the wings. Mike Bertoia is waiting to come on in a second here, so we're going to actually skip to the Region 6 slide here. We'll go back and cover the 3, 4, and 5. But I just want to point out that there aren't many huge games in the West or the West region. Listen to me go back about 10 years here. Region 6, Oshkosh versus La Crosse is the cream of the crop at 2 p.m. Eastern time. St. John's, Gustavus Adolphus could be interesting. St. John's, though, had a great bounce-back game in terms of some of their inconsistency heading into last week. Well, last week was really good for them against Carleton, so they are who they are. That's not changing, it looks like. Stout versus Whitewater. You never know what Stout's going to bring, but Whitewater should be able to handle them just fine. This Redlands-Claremont Mudd Scripps game is actually very interesting because Redlands has had a fair amount of problems this year, and Claremont Mudd Scripps is looking to possibly blaze a trail into the playoffs this season. We'll see where this one goes, but look out for it. And then you got some red-eye games, 10 p.m. Eastern time. Willamette, George Fox, and also we've got the Cal Lutheran Chapman game there as well. I think Mike Bertoia is in the wings. I saw the camera on earlier. We'll ask him to turn it back on. And it was on, it was off, it was on, it was off. Let's see here. And just waiting for Mike to come back on, and we'll bring him on in here in 1 second here on In the Huddle. In the meantime, Andrew, for those that don't know, you are the voice of the Union College, whatever they are these days, and so it's a job that is very, very fulfilling. I did it for how many years? And you've been doing such a phenomenal job. I want to thank you for that, for carrying on to the tradition. How's it feel? What is this? Season 5 or 6 for you? What is this?
Yeah, it's 10? Hard to believe. Yeah, without 2020, my first year, we did all 10 games, right? Because we were still on the radio. I sound like from the 1800s myself here, talking about the radio. But we had every game on the radio back in 2015. That was my first season following your footsteps. In fact, you did a game with me, I think, that year in Western Connecticut State. I think it rings a bell. I think you hopped on with me. So that was my first year. So this has got to be 15 and 16. We did every game. And then obviously with technological advances and people doing the video, and people would rather watch that than listen to the radio. So 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 was the NCAA year, the No 20, 21, 22. So this is my 8th year. It's hard to believe.
Wow.
I should remember that because 2015 was also the year I was married. So it should be easier math than that.
That's an interesting point right there. You don't ever forget the year you're married, just for survival's sake. I'm going to do one other thing here. While Mike, we're still having trouble with your camera being consistent there, so they'll keep working on that at La Crosse to make sure we get that interview in. But if you give me a second here, guys, as I try to figure out how to use the software today. No, that's not
sure.
I will, right?
Frank. I mean, I think this game. I mean, I looked quickly back at last year's game. That Oshkosh, they win on, or the La Crosse wins on the road at Oshkosh, and 38-35 came down to a field goal in the last minute. So it's this is going to be another I think this is going to be another good game between these two. WIAC or WIAC or however we want to pronounce it. I think is probably the strongest conference in the country, however you say it.
Yep, and JB is joining us now too. JB, I see Mike in the wings here. The camera's working again, so we'll jump on that in a second here. And we'll keep both of you guys in for question and answer session here, if that's okay. So we'll go round robin on questions for Mike Bertoia, who's an offensive lineman for Wisconsin La Crosse, in just a moment here. But
Finally,
just want to welcome in JB.
Getting the big guys on the show. We've had a lot of quarterbacks this season. It's been a very quarterback heavy in the D3FB Huddle season, but we finally got one of the big boys, the O-line, a guy who's been an All-American, I think a multiple-time All-Conference. WIAC, is it have we come to a consensus? I heard a little bit of stuff. Okay, well, yeah, let's ask a guy who actually plays in the conference to get his professional opinion on it. But yeah, I know he's been a big part of their success.
Let's do this. I'm going to change screens here. Andrew, stay with us. Don't leave us here. But in the meantime, Mike Bertoia. And Mike, I hopefully, first off, I'm pronouncing your name correctly. But, is it Bertoia and is it WIAC or WIAC? Hold on one second. There we go. Go ahead. Oh, hold on. Wait, this is my end here, Mike. Now we can hear you.
Okay. It's Bertoia, and I just call it the WIAC.
There we go. Yes.
I like the righteous indignation of the whole thing, because 2/3 of the country said we were all wrong on that one, and then you're saying, no, you're right. Don't worry about it. Mike, let's talk a little bit of WIAC football here, and the fact that La Crosse was a team, and I think you guys know this, that we didn't exactly give you guys the homage of the preseason ranking on our own show here, because we saw so many graduations and loss of yardage and things like that along the way. It was a concern, but you guys have just, aside from that Hardin-Simmons game, we'll talk about that in a second, you guys have been kind of rolling here. Talk about it a little bit. Talk about kind of maybe the chip on your shoulder, seeing that people weren't necessarily calling you one of the top dogs in the WIAC.
Yeah, I can understand from the outside looking in why there might have been some of that doubt when looking at this team. I think from the inside we understood that from the recruiting side of things, we brought in some really good pieces. I've been here since 2019, So I've kind of seen the evolution of the recruiting classes that we've had. So coming into this season, I knew that we had some really good players kind of just waiting to get on the field. And, there wasn't exactly that experience there yet, but I knew the talent was there to replace the guys that we had lost.
JB, go ahead.
Hey, Mike. Thanks again for joining us. And one of the things I think has really impacted D3 football the last couple of years has been the advent of the COVID extra fifth year. I mean, at this point in time, I mean, we did see a lot of guys leave from the prior year's teams, but you also have others with a lot of eligibility. Does that sort of what you were saying there before with the recruiting, and that you actually have this sort of backlog of talent here?
Yeah, so we had a lot of like fifth and sixth year players last year. And because of that, there was a lot of really good recruits that didn't get to play, but they got to develop behind the scenes, and those guys now have had the ability to play. So I think in other years they might have been starters for us, but because of the 22 season having so much returning talent, they kind of just had to wait,
Mr.
Yeah,
Santillo.
Mike, hey, Andy Santillo here. Congrats on the great start. You guys are ranked 4th in the country, 5-1. What's been the key to the offense this year? You guys are averaging over 441 yards per game, and as JB says, we don't give enough credit to the guys up front. So, I guess give some credit to those guys up front here that play alongside you.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have a really talented offensive line, and I think we really have a great coach more than anything in Andrew McGlenn. He really gets us as ready as you can be every Saturday. On top of that, I think that our running back stable is really talented, and Kaiser Helterbrand might be a pretty good football player, so he makes it pretty easy to get the running game going.
Yeah, what is the scheme exactly? Because Kaiser's not always the guy that I'm calling in crunch time as the guy, necessarily behind center or throwing the passes or whatever at all times or scoring all the things. What is the scheme going on there this year? Is it a kind of a two-headed monster scenario, or what are you guys doing, and how has it lent to this, I guess, maturity going on in the offense here? Because it seems like week by week you guys are showing more and more maturity as we're going along here.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about the scheme at length, but truthfully, I'm just told to block. From the skill position side of things, I would say that our team is extremely unique in that there's not a lot of egos, and it's more so what do we need at any given time. Like against Whitewater, I don't know if you guys tuned in, but we used 2 quarterbacks at one time, and then you go to Platteville and we use one and rely more on different schematics. So I would say really it's just like a game-to-game type thing. And I wish I could tell you more about what the scheme would be from game to game, but again, I'm just blocking,
Yeah, and it seems like to me, at least as a casual fan, that maybe it's like your own version of the RPO, right? Because you have a quarterback who can run, he can pass, he has the option to do either one, and so we see Helterbrand, sometimes calling his own number, sometimes throwing the ball. But let's pivot this weekend to a game that's probably one of the biggest of the weekend. You guys are taking on the Titans. Oshkosh is knocking on the door every season now, and at 2-1 in the conference, this is kind of a do or die situation for them if they want to stay relevant in the national conversation or for a WIAC playoff or a Pool C bid. When you guys take on or preparing for these games, is it just this? It's all about us, we don't worry about the opponent? Or do you know kind of in the back of your mind, like these guys are going to give us their best shot and we need to be ready?
I would say that every game in the WIAC is literally a bloodbath. There are no games that are taken for granted, so we're approaching every team the same. We know that we're going to get everyone's best shot, and we have to give it our best. So we're treating Oshkosh just like we would any other WIAC opponent.
Yeah, Mike, I was just going to ask. I mean, this game last year out there at Oshkosh came down to a game-winning, I think, 51-yard field goal with like under a minute to play. So, I mean, what do you see as being the keys this season to this season's game against them? And what did you guys do last year? That maybe you'd like to try to accomplish this year in this season's matchup.
I'm a lineman, so I'm always going to say I think the key to winning the game is establishing the run game. Can't speak too much for the defensive side of things, but I assume stopping their quarterback Kobe would be a good start of things. I would just say if we can establish the running game and stay at it for 4 quarters, we'll be in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, Kobe Berghammer, he's pretty good. There's no doubt about that. But like we've said, you've got some good guys on your offensive side as well there, and your defense is almost second to none as well. So this is going to be an interesting game to see how it plays out. Mike, I want to ask you, though, when it comes to WEAC schools and choosing where to go or what to do, when you signed on for La Crosse, it wasn't the behemoth necessarily. It had been a number of years since it had been the behemoth, and you still chose to go there. There were other WEAC schools that were likely interested in you, among others out there in Division III. Why La Crosse, or why did you take a risk here that, hey, we're going to be able to make this team into one of the fighting teams every year at the top of the standings, even in a year, this year, where, like we said, you lost so much of your offensive numbers, but yet you're still here. You're in fact better than ever according to the rankings.
Yeah, at the time when I came to La Crosse, I really just loved the place that La Crosse was, and I saw the upward trend that the program was on. And what really sold me was the coaching staff, specifically Matt Janis. He was the DC then. I actually came to La Crosse as a defensive player, and I really liked what connection I had built with Janis. And when he took over as head coach, it was really like a perfect situation for me. But I knew from the time that I met him that it was going to be a really special team with him in charge in any capacity. So that was kind of the sell for me. And I would say if you've ever been to La Crosse, what kind of separates it from other WEAC schools is just a beautiful place, and there's buy-in from the community. So I saw those things, and it made it really easy for me to buy in, even when the program wasn't, a top 5 program.
Last question from JB. Go ahead, JB.
Yeah, and I was just kind of curious because, speaking of beautiful places, your hometown is Lake Zurich, so I assume that there's probably a nice, beautiful lake there. And you're in the state of Illinois. I'm pretty sure it was like 25 years ago that I lived in Chicago, but that's, close to the border of Wisconsin. But how did all these, Illinois schools not keep you in the home state? What brought you across the border, so to speak?
Well, I think that the allure of a bigger school kind of got to me. A lot of the WEAC schools have a little bit more enrollment than some of the private schools within Illinois that you might see in like the CCIW. So I really wanted kind of that like big school feel at a smaller level, I guess you could say. And the WEAC really called me on that. And I found that La Crosse is my best fit within the WEAC.
Well, that's awesome.
Well, yeah, Mike, you are one polished dude. Let me tell you something. You are taking the offensive lineman interview to new heights.
He's like Ali Marpet, man. He's just kidding. It's just like Ali.
Wow.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
No, we appreciate you. It's always great to have a conversation like this. You're as astute as Nate Milne was earlier on the show, and it puts all of us to shame. But I want to give you an opportunity for any shout-outs to family, friends, teammates, etc. Mike Bertoia, the floor is yours here. Go right ahead.
I got to call out my offensive line and my offensive line coach. I guess I would say look forward to Jack Kelly, our defensive end, having a great game this weekend. I think he's one of the best players in the nation that might not get the shine that he maybe deserves at times. Other than that, I appreciate your time.
Thank you. As I try to transition here, but Mike, we appreciate your time, you joining us, and getting La Crosse on the show. We've been trying a couple times, and finally we got it to work out. So thanks to Coach Janis for his ability to make that finally happen for us. Yep. And I'm sure we're going to be talking a lot more about you down the line throughout this season. Absolutely. So thank you for joining us here.
Yes, sir. Have a good day.
You too now.
All right, good luck
Mike
Saturday.
Bertoia, offensive lineman for UW La Crosse, and thanks to him and everybody over there for fighting through that. Andrew, stay with us. In the meantime here, JB, I want you, if you can, prep to talk about the Merchant Marine situation while we get the video here. I'm trying to remember what school I lined up here. It's Carol. Excuse me. It's Carol talking about things they can't do without. Let's go to this video.
Here we are today with another question of the day, asking the Carroll University football team one thing they can't live without.
Insulin. A good buttered steak.
Biscuits.
Night class.
Nutella. Each other.
Spotify music.
My chapstick.
My dog.
2K24 on PS5.
AC Miller's positivity.
Coach Garcia.
Ketchup.
Linda's omelets.
Smarties.
Managers doing our laundry.
Raw wave music.
Little Caesars.
Late night McDonald's.
Football.
Coach Brady Thompson.
The sun, because I'm from Cali. Don's fault. Chocolate covered blueberries.
My dogs and my baby boy Drew.
Ben & Jerry's.
Peanut butter.
I'm a simp. I can't live without my girlfriend. Yep, I'm a second simp on that one right there. And I also need oxygen.
My dogs.
The Green Bay Packers.
My wife and my 2 beautiful daughters.
My morning cup of Joe.
I can't live without my insulin pump. Goldfish.
My mom. Shout out to her.
Josh Ravy. Gatorade. Food. Dunkin' Donuts iced coffee.
Lightning McQueen.
Sam Corey.
It'll be my family. I love them a whole big old bunches.
Bubba. Nate Johnson.
My puppy, Malibu, and Hallie Peterson.
Air.
Culver's and football.
My puppy. MDR's ice cream.
Football. My Merce.
My family.
My girlfriend and watching YouTube videos. Trevor Pye. My mommy.
Jackson William Harmon.
Josh Raby. Right there. And then
Moose.
my twin M. Whoa.
My fish named Lily Pad. My dog.
Something I can't live without personally would happen to be my cat.
Coach JB and Coach Fef.
See you next week.
Yay!
Hi, everyone. Rain or shine, you always get question of the day. But this week, we definitely need your help. So comment down below some of your favorite questions you want to ask our amazing football players. We look forward to seeing you next week.
See you. Oh. Look at this wonderful specimen.
Yeah, that was well done. I got to give him credit for that one.
Oh, God. Oh,
Carol,
God.
you outdid
Really
yourself
funny.
on that one. Thank you very much for that content. Andrew, if you bear with us for a second here, I want to talk about a little something that we learned about this week related to Merchant Marine Academy, and JB will fill us in on the details on this.
Yeah, so for those of you who may not be aware, there's a Latin phrase, acta non verba, which translates, as far as I understand, is to actions, not words. And there were a pair of Mariners football players during their C year, which is, I think, typically between, it's either sophomore, junior year, or junior prior to senior year, where they're out at sea and they're working in various parts of the world, some which are undergoing amount of conflict. And there are these 2 Mariners players, Joseph Franco from Staten Island and Cole Simmons, who's from Montrose, Colorado, who were awarded a commendation by the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy for effectively saving some lives of some students that were, or some parties out there that was in trouble and in doubt. So they were able to, get part of their Coast Guard license to become Merchant Marine officers, but they did have a situation that they were literally called into active duty to intervene and save some people out at sea. And so I mean, this is really kind of the ultimate why D3 bigger than football, and this is why we always love the these academy guys, both at the Merchant Marine, the Coast Guard, Army, Navy, Air Force, et cetera, Marines. And this is why these guys are sort of a special breed of D3 football players. So congratulations to Cole and Joe on this commendation and for risking their lives for the benefit of others. This is why we always give a big shout out for our service people, and congratulations to them.
Excellent, and thank you for doing that, JB. Guys, we got to go through regions 3, 4, and 5 still. We did not get to those slides yet, and then we have predictions, which, Andrew, you're going to stick around for predictions, right? Because last time we were outclassed big time by Jim Catton 0. He went 8-3 in the week that we went like 0-11 or something like that. So we'll see.
We were not good that week.
Yeah. But first things first, we'll tell you more about the games coming up here. Region 3, Hardin-Simmons, Sul Ross State is your pick, JB. I've got Washington and Lee versus Hampton-Sydney because WNL is still alive in the ODAC race, and so that'll be interesting. Shenandoah will take on Randolph-Macon. Rhodes-Hendricks, interesting game at 7 p.m. as well. But there are those. Go ahead, take Region 4.
Trine takes on Albion, who just replaced their head coach in the middle of the season. So I know Albion's struggling a little bit. Trine's trying to keep their head above water there in the MIA race. And Hanover, Mount St. Joseph, Rose-Hulman versus Franklin. This is a big Heartland sort of round robin right here. That's right now that conference is up for grabs. The winners of these games will have a big impact on where that shapes from the playoff perspective. And DePaul takes on another challenger in Wittenberg. No pushover there in the NCAC, 2 p.m. So, Frank, looks like you like Rose-Hulman and Franklin. I'm taking Hanover and Mount St. Joe's in the Heartland sort of round robin here. In Region 5, speaking of Carroll, they have a big game against Wheaton. This is definitely a major CCIW matchup, as is Wash U versus North Central. Both games pretty much all these games are going to be at 2 o'clock. North Central in the front runner, number 1 in the nation. If Wash U has any hope for any postseason bid, they need to make something happen here, but the odds won't be in their favor most likely. Lake Forest is going to get a challenge from Ripon. They've always provided the Foresters a good challenge in the Midwest Conference, and the North Park, sort of the surprise of the CCIW. Can they upset the Vikings' strong run? I know that there was an article on D3Football.com about Augustana's recent success. And so we'll see if the Vikings can win this game and stay solid in that third place spot. Maybe they'll get that Isthmus Bowl bid. They haven't been in the postseason for a long time, so this is a big matchup for both teams.
Well done, and thank you again for doing that. And it is time for predictions here. We will dispense with the clock on the screen, and we'll just kind of go into this in a moment here. Andrew, you ready? You ready to roll? We'll basically start with JB, me, you, then me, you, JB, and we'll just keep going round and round like that.
Clockwise, okay.
Yeah, the clock will be somewhere in the back of our minds here at this point. I just got to find where the heck our music is. Oh, there it is, and here we go. First game is there. The first game, is going to be in the NUMAC. It's a game I'm attending, Salve Regina at Springfield, JB.
Well, the Pride at home are tough, but it does feel like this year with all those fifth-year seniors that the Seahawks have, that they could eke this one out. It's going to be potentially a wet and slippery Saturday afternoon across the Northeast, so I think maybe the Seahawks, with a little more of a passing game and maybe a fumble or two that they recover from the Pride with that wet ball, will squeak by with a 24-21 win in Springfield.
Coach Milne had pointed out that this is not the first experience with the triple option for Salve Regina. They did beat Merchant Marine earlier in the season, and so I think they know what they're going to be handling here. I'll give a slight edge to Salve Regina on the road, 17-14. Andrew, you saw Springfield this season. Oh, hold on, Andrew. That's on me. Go for it.
JB mentioned wet weather. I'm going to go with the running game here. Springfield's rushing attack has been very, very good, except for when it played against Union in September. So I'm going to go with the Pride. I'll say 24-17.
Muhlenberg at Dickinson. I'm still going to give the edge here to the Mules, but this is going to be a close game. This is going to be nip and tuck, I think, because the Red Devils have been really good this season at pulling out close games. And so, if I woke up the next day and heard Dickinson beat Muhlenberg, I wouldn't be shocked right now. That's the kind of season it's been. Muhlenberg, though, I give the edge to 28-24. Go ahead, Andrew.
I am going to go with you as well. I think Muhlenberg is the team. Dickinson has played well since losing against RPI, but I think Muhlenberg's going to take it. I will say 28-17.
JB?
Yeah, I think I'll go with the Mules also. I feel like a combination of their defense and this. I've heard this Rapetti kid is pretty good at quarterback, so he could have a big game, even though Dickinson seems to get some big plays on the home court. But I think after a close first half, Mules pull away 35-20.
I'm just realizing ampersands don't look good on my. Oh no, actually it came through. So Washington and Lee at Hampton Sydney, and Andrew, you will begin this one. Good luck to you on this ODAC game. You probably have very little idea about, but that doesn't mean you're not going to do better than we do on this. Okay, that's the rub on
fair
this.
enough. Yeah, that's the
true. This is one of the leagues that I don't follow all that often. I'm going to say Hampton Sydney because they're playing at home, and I think they're going to win this game. I'm going to say 21-17.
JB?
Tigers do play tough at home, and they also seem to play in very close games week after week. But I think the Generals were either off last week or they didn't have as tough an opponent. Hampton Sydney's been living by the skin of their teeth the last couple of weeks. So I think the Generals will kind of ground and pound, keep that high-powered offense off the field, and win 31-28. Going to be a close one.
I'm going to Washington and Lee. I think the Generals are kind of lining up, getting ready for that Randolph-Macon matchup ultimately, and so I'm going to give the edge here to Washington and Lee on the road by a final score of 24-20. Let's see, up next is Hardin-Simmons at Sul Ross State. JB, you start with a Hardin-Simmons team that has been wacky the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, and with Sul Ross, bringing in guys to help them take it up to Division II, I think is their next step, or maybe it's the NAIA. But either way, they're bringing in some sort of non-scholarship types of things, or scholarship types of things, I should say. So they'll be a tough out. But the Cowboys seem to be finding ways. Now they've got Galen Glynn back at quarterback. I think it's going to be a tough game like last week, but they'll persevere. Let's say 35-28.
You're number 25 in my poll because of what's been happening lately. I'm going to give Hardin-Simmons still the edge here by a final score of 31-21. Andrew?
Yeah, Hardin-Simmons, they had that misstep in September at Endicott, but they've kind of bounced back. I'll go with Hardin-Simmons on the road.
Any score?
I will go 28-21.
Yeah, I like it. Okay. Now the HCAC round robin games. Rose Holman at Franklin is first here. And I think that Rose Holman has just played better overall. Franklin's had an interesting season, I believe, with 3 losses, but undefeated in the HCAC. And so Rose Holman has, even on comparable scores, a better resume right now. So I'm going to give the edge to Rose Holman on the road again. That should be a song. By the final score of 34-20.
Yeah, I know a lot of national press got given to Cora, the running back from Franklin, who had that 318-yard, 4-touchdown performance. But it was against Defiance, who's going to be leaving Division III because they're sick and tired of losing a lot. So I think Rose Holman is the stronger program in this instance. So I will go with the Fighting Engineers, I think they're called, or the Running Engineers, or what have you, to outlast the Grizz 42-33. Going to be a high-scoring game.
Andrew, he went out of order. Maybe that was a benefit to you, so I didn't say anything, but
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that benefited me. I'm going to go with you guys, Rose Holman on the road. I think they're going to have too much. You guys both had high scores, so I'm going to say 38-24.
This conference readily tests the lights on the scoreboard, I got to be honest with you, every year when they're in conference play. Hanover at Mount St. Joseph. Hanover, the one-loss team, but their only loss was in conference. And so Mount St. Joseph, this is an interesting matchup. JB, you start. We'll give them a little extra time again to study up on this one.
Yeah, well, Mount St. Joe's won the conference last year, and they do have this great quarterback. So my initial thing is to go with the Lions at home. And I think I'm going to stick with that pick, even though Hanover has looked good at times. But I'll take the Mount St. Joe's to win it. Another high-scoring affair, like a 42-28 type game.
Yeah, and I think Mount St. Joe's, if they win this game, they're going to stay atop the standings in the HCAC with whoever wins the previous game we talked about. So I think that they have a lot on the line here. Hanover would be a survival game for them, but obviously with the one loss, they are having to play their way back into contention. I guess at Mount St. Joe's, the edge at home, as you suggested, 40-30.
Yeah, I will. I'll stick with you guys. I'm going to say Mount St. Joseph's at home. They're in first place. They're trying to stay in first place in the conference. I will say 31-21.
Pair of CCIW games here. First, North Park having a historic season by at least recent standards against Augustana, who is also having a pretty good season as well here. And I will start this and say Augustana at home is tough right now. And I will stick with that 41-24 Augustana. JB?
Yeah, I mean, I've been riding the Vikings bandwagon for a few weeks now. I told the Isthmus Bowl guys I thought that they would be their bowl bid pick 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I'm going to stick with that. North Park has had a great run, but I think the Vikings are just that much stronger. They'll win 35-17.
Andrew?
Yeah, I think Augustana at home. I mean, they've scored over 40 points in all but 2 of their games. I think they're going to score big once again. Maybe not that big. I'll say 38-21.
Wheaton at Carroll. We know who wins right now in the social media game because Carroll had a pretty good 2-minute, 20-second Twitter video there. But what do we think about on the football field, JB?
Yeah, I just feel like the Thunder have been tested. They played Oshkosh. They beat them. They hung it with North Central for a little while, I guess. And it's not that anyone can really hang with them, but I feel like the Thunder have enough talent to keep it close and to win on the road. I'd say this will be a closer game than maybe people realize, but I'll take the Thunder to outlast, say, 42-35.
Mr. Santillo, after me on this, actually, I didn't go yet. Wheaton wins this game, just being the class right now below North Central, obviously, but still the class, or in the class of the CCIW. On the road, they still win this 45-20.
Agreed. They scored 35 against North Central, so that is
that's bad. A bad thing to talk about with respect to me and everything else in that game. So let's just keep going on that.
they win this game on the road.
Give me a score while I get the next one up here.
I'll say 35-21.
Okay, you're going to start this one because you had to prep up a little bit for this one today. Oshkosh at La Crosse, and you saw Mike Bertoia. You could see the leadership in that team and why they're doing as well as they are. A real stand-up guy there he was, and representing the rest of his team. Oshkosh, so obviously Kobe Berghammer, Andrew, has some prowess in the passing game, to say the least. How do you feel about this one?
Yeah, I'm going to go with La Crosse. I mean, they won by a field goal on the road last year. They're at home this year. They're averaging close to 450 yards of offense. We heard great interview there with Matt Bertoia, who was very complimentary of his offensive line crew. So I'm going to say La Crosse wins this one. I'm going to say 28-24.
JB?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we've seen with the Titans is that they can be a little hot and cold, right? So this might be a game where their offense gets cooled down a little bit. Maybe that defensive end that Mike brought up might have some TFLs or sacks, what have you. So I'll take the home team. It's going to be a close call, though. These games always are. So I'll take the Eagles to hang on, maybe with a long field goal near the end to win 31-28.
Yeah, at home, if this was at Oshkosh, I might actually flip my pick. I think the home team matters on this one a little bit. And so I'm going to give La Crosse the edge in this game. Listen, if Oshkosh wins this game, all those folks talking about multiple pool C bids and all that stuff can shove it, because what's starting to happen at that point is complete collapse of the leadership of the WIAC because of all these teams just knocking each other off. So we'll see where it goes. If La Crosse wins, then it's kind of back to normal still normal, I guess I should say. La Crosse winning this game.
For another week.
Yeah, exactly. 28-20, I believe, will be the final score in favor of La Crosse. Now, Andrew, you're really going to test your D3 knowledge on this one. We're going out west, way west, to California. Redlands at Claremont Mud Scripps, and JB's going to start. JB, this is a big game, actually, in the SCIAC.
Yeah, it really is, because both of these teams have been sort of, talk about hot and cold, like they'll win some and then they lose a game, and you're like, how did that happen? The Bulldogs, though, they seem like they just have a little bit more of an edge on defense. Claremont Mud Scripps has this very strong quarterback, but I'm going to go with the Dogs on the road. It's going to be a low-scoring affair. They hung around with Linfield, so I think they've had a little bit of a tougher challenge, perhaps. So 14-10, Redlands.
I'm going to go Claremont Mud Scripps here. I watched Redlands last week, and they looked listless after that loss against Pomona Pitts the previous week, ultimately. And so I'm beginning to wonder what's going on there. I think Claremont Mud Scripps, as you pointed out, has a healthy offense that can win this game for sure. I will give them the edge, 17-14 in this game.
Oh, two low-scoring projections there. I'm going to go with Claremont Mud Scripps as well. They're 3-0 at home. This one's at home, and I think they're gonna get this one. I'll say 21-17.
Okay, we saved it for last for a reason. Hobart at Union.
I was wondering.
It's in the Huddle Bowl right here, folks. And JB, Nate Milne was expecting you to hop on a plane and come to the game. Why aren't you?
Well, I've got some kids to take care of at home for a change, and after the New York City thing, I need to take a break from a little bit of travel for at least another week or so. But as you guys may have seen from my gohobart.blogspot.com post, I think this is going to be a close game. Logan Hansen seems to think his model always correctly predicts this. He's been pretty right on the last 2 years, but in 19 and 18 he was off by about 20 points, and then in 2018 he was off who won by a touchdown. So schmodels, it's going to be rainy, it's going to be wet. On paper, Union is the stronger team, but I got to represent my alma mater. I'm going to say Hobart wins 13-10. We'll see.
I'm going to take the paper and say Union is the stronger team for this game. I'm going to say that their defense is going to be the difference maker, and the weather may be pretty bad, and so that ball gets slick. That ball will start flying out of offensive players' hands. I'm going to say it's going to be a low-scoring, tight game, 14-10, Union wins.
So you guys are going to hate this, but I'm calling the game, so I'm not going to make a pick.
Oh!
But
that's right. He has to stay impartial. But I have a feeling I know who he would pick if he had to.
Well, both teams' only loss has been at Ithaca. And I don't think JB heard this, but Coach Kevin DeWall still thinks that a potential runner-up at 9-1 in the Liberty League should be a Pool C. Should be in the Pool C consideration.
They should be. They absolutely should be. It's not a guarantee, though, as you know. Yeah.
So the winner of this game stays on track for that, right? You've got 4 one-loss teams in the Liberty League. So I think this is going to be a really good game. I mean, Coach DeWall said 2 great defenses with opportunistic offenses. I think Union has had 2 kind of, I wouldn't say sluggish offensive games, but the Rochester game, they had put up a lot of yards, but not a lot of points. And last week they struggled in the rain. So I think Union's had a couple of these end-of-the-season slides, if you will, and I don't foresee that happening again. I think home field is going to be big in this one, but Hobart travels well, and I think it's going to be a really good game that comes down to the fourth quarter, and somebody's going to win by less than a touchdown.
Yeah, I think
JB, put him down for Union.
Hobart hasn't won in Schenectady since, I think, 2015, so it's been a while. I think you guys have won 3 or 4 in a row there at home.
He's picking Union. Just put him down for Union on the pad, okay? Got it?
Hey, Hobart has won 9 of the last 12 meetings, dating back to 2010.
True.
Andrew, we can't thank you enough for coming on by today to help us out, and even predicting games you never thought you would ever predict in your lifetime in Division III. Okay, we get it. But
he's going to be he's going to be in the middle of the Union broadcast, and he's going to be like, "Hey, wait a minute! I have to check the score of the Franklin Rose Holman game. Excuse me for a second."
I'm going to have to stay up late for the Claremont Mud Scripps game.
Yeah, exactly. Right. We do it. Why don't you? Come on, 10 p.m. Eastern time.
Yeah.
And I've fallen asleep to Redlands games, not because they're boring, because they're on at 1 a.m. basically still going on. But Andrew, thanks for joining us so much again, and good luck on your broadcast tomorrow. Sorry I won't be joining you, but I will see you on. I'll see you soon. I will put it that way.
Yeah.
But I will send you updates from Springfield on the Salve Regina game, perhaps, in case you want to update people on that.
Can I ask one last question?
Yeah. Well, let me just say one thing, and then the question. Springfield is important to Union right now because they need Springfield to win the NEWMAC for regionally ranked opponent reasons. So if Springfield can win out, it helps Union greatly. Depending on where strength of schedule lands for them, having a regionally ranked opponent in a win versus them is huge when it comes to difference making in Pool C. Now your question. Sorry about that, JB.
And I'm sort of saying this tongue in cheek, and I don't know if Andrew knows or not, but. I mean, you guys play for a rivalry trophy against RPI that's been, for the oldest rivalry in upstate New York football, the Dutchman Shoes. Are they going to change the name of the trophy now to the Chargers Shoes? I mean, come on.
I don't even. I mean, I still hold out hope that we're going back to Dutchman at some point soon, because somebody's going to realize this is as bad as the Red Hawks for Rensselaer back when they tried that trick.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no comment, but I'm more concerned with who wins the other rivalry trophy, maybe 2 hours to the west, and making sure that the Cortica Jug stays on the South Hill.
Well, that's an interesting point, too, because A.J. Wingfield not going to be playing anymore this season, as we've pointed out, and that's a very, very tough scenario. We'll see what happens at the QB position here starting this week against Rochester in that game. Again, Andrew, thanks for joining us. We're going to end things here with JB, but go ahead. Nope. I think we lost him there.
He just said goodbye. Yep.
Yeah, there he is.
Thank you, Andrew, for bailing me out with some of my family commitments I had this morning, and of course, Coach Milne. I mean, you guys should just go on tour. The comedy. I can't wait to watch the playback of you two roasting me probably for the first 5 minutes. So
it was pretty tame, actually. His interview. Yeah, his interview with Louis Barrios was really excellent. I mean, you've never asked questions like that before, and I was really taking notes even. Like these are questions a color commentator type should be asking, and insights he should be giving. I'll tell you.
Okay.
No kidding. Okay. You may want to go to the Nate Milne commentator training seminar coming up soon. Anyway,
jeez,
no, he was good though. In all seriousness. In all seriousness, Louis Barrios and him could have just carried the whole damn thing themselves. I shouldn't have even been there. How you watching tomorrow? How you watching football tomorrow as we're at 10:22 a.m.? This is our longest live show ever, I believe, at this point. So finish it out. How are we watching it?
Time.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, so I think most of these games are going to be, once again, very closely packed in. So you're going to have to be a bit of on a swivel as far as, changing the channels, so to speak. But tonight there's a good game, and I think even the college football stadium, or there's a guy on Twitter who travels around the country. He's going to be in Danbury to watch Mass Maritime versus WestCon, so you can tune in at 7 tonight. But starting off at noon tomorrow, I mean, take your pick. Salve, Springfield, Alfred State Gallaudet. Someone's got to win the CFC, so that should be a good one. You obviously have Ithaca, Rochester, Hobart Union, I believe, is at noon. Both teams had different numbers or time kickoffs for that. And then you have a whole slate of games that start at 1 between Hopkins, Ursinus, Muhlenberg, Dickinson, Salisbury, Rowan. You've got Del Val, Lebval at 1. 1:30, you got Norwich, the Coast Guard, sort of the Little Army-Navy game. You got some of these HCAC round robins starting at 1:30. You've got DePaul, Wittenberg at 2. And then 2 o'clock, you've got a huge slate of games in the CCIW. Wash U, North Central, Wheaton, Carroll, North Park, Augustana. You got Lake Forest taking on Ripon in the Midwest. You've got Oshkosh La Crosse, which is pretty much the game of the weekend. St. John's versus Gustavus Adolphus. Maybe under the radar, but could be an interesting game in the MIAC. 3 o'clock, you've got Stout versus Whitewater. The Warhawks are on a little of a roll, but they haven't won the conference just yet. Stout gave some other teams a good run for their money, so tune in for that. 4 o'clock, Redlands versus Claremont Mudscripts. It's not a red-eye game, guys, so if you want to see some SoCal football, you can tune in at 4. And then for those diehards, there's a great game at 7 o'clock on Saturday night, Washington and Jefferson versus Carnegie Mellon. It's basically an elimination game for these teams for either a Pool C bid and or maybe even an ECAC bowl potentially. And then, of course, for the Night Owls, we've got Willamette versus George Fox and Cal Lutheran versus Chapman at 10 o'clock. But you're going to have a really tight window of 12 to about 2 to 4 o'clock where there's going to be a ton of action going on. So you're going to have you have to do the Greg Wally Wabash, 15 different monitors going to catch all these games at once.
Yeah, indeed. Thoughts generally, we didn't really talk about, I don't know if I'm going to do it right here, somewhere down here. Will Chalk continue to win is the question because, it's more on your side anyway. But it's been kind of a Chalk kind of couple weeks, and so we'll see if that's going to continue or not. I'm curious to see if anybody gets knocked out of the top 25. We've got 2 straight weeks where nobody has got knocked out. And I can never remember 3 straight weeks of it happening. I can't even remember 2, to be honest with you, but I'm sure that's happened.
Yeah.
But 3, probably not. Thank you to Nate Milne for joining us on short notice as co-host number 1, and Andrew Santillo as co-host number 2. JB, you weren't so bad as co-host number 3 eventually here. But Louis Barrios and everybody at Del Val, good luck to Del Val as they face La Val this weekend. And also Mike Bertoia from La Crosse, and their game coming up against Oshkosh. Thanks to everybody at La Crosse for getting that together as well. Thanks to all of you for putting up with us for 86 minutes of this show. And we are out of here, folks. Have a great weekend. We'll see you on Twitter throughout the weekend and on Crunch Time, hopefully early next week.